Good afternoon. My name is Buffy. Today we're going to talk about the most frustrating part of unsolved cases. Let me ask you something. What's more frustrating, not knowing what happened or hearing 10 different theories and none of them feel right? Ultimately, I think the not knowing part is probably the hardest because you go over it and over it in your mind, especially if you're a person who tends to think through things deeply and tries to reach a resolution, and you're a person who wants a clean ending, which is a natural thing for a human being. We don't want unclosed loops. We don't want things that are left in limbo. We want to actually have an answer, not only for the family, because the family clearly is struggling with this. Many of these people never get an answer, which is extremely unfair and unfortunate, because that's something that definitely haunts people a lot, right? They feel like they will never know what happened to their loved one. For instance, Savannah Guthrie, talking about her mom, Nancy, you can see the utter pain on her face. You can see that she's really struggling with the loss of her mother, and she wants to know what happened to her. And who wouldn't want to know that? Who wouldn't want to be able to bring your mother home, to put her in a place where you can visit her and you can make sure that she's safe? And ultimately, criminals who do what they do don't think about the family. They don't think about the people that they're harming. They think about what they want to do at that moment. And it's really unfortunate. So today we are talking about the most frustrating part of unsolved cases. And a lot of you probably deal with the struggle of trying to figure that out. Good afternoon. Welcome to the podcast. Today, well, not the podcast, but welcome to the live today. Today, we're talking about the most frustrating part of unsolved cases. Hey, how you doing? Roman Ash? Hopefully I didn't butcher that. I apologize if I did. So today we're talking about the most frustrating part of unsolved cases. Let me ask you something. What's more frustrating, not knowing what happened or hearing 10 different theories and none of them feel right? Because ultimately, we don't know. They're unsolved for a reason, and that can be extremely frustrating. If you are a person who likes resolution, unsolved cases can drive you nuts, right? Because there's no clear resolution. And ultimately, having 10 theories means you have 10 theories, but nothing's been proven, likely because there's not a lot of evidence to back up what's going on. And to do anything, even if you were to get a confession, let's say that Bob Jones confessed, the thing with Bob Jones is it has to be more than his confession. There has to be something called corpus delicti, which means independent validation of his confession. So that prevents law enforcement from literally searching down and interrogating people and forcing them to confess when there is no evidence. Hello, welcome. And so that can be extremely difficult to deal with that, right? Knowing that there has to be more evidence. And ultimately, a lot of times that evidence doesn't come for many years after. Maybe it's a deathbed confession. Maybe it's a confession that the police finally got after so many years. Or, the new line of defense is generally the DNA, the ancestry DNA, which a lot of people are found in that way, right? So sometimes there are so many theories that it actually makes things worse. People are getting whiplash from hearing, oh, the person left voluntarily. Oh no, they didn't leave voluntarily. They were kidnapped by this person, and then you go on down the line. It makes things so difficult. And the police do the best that they can do. And our technology has improved a lot, which is amazing. But at the same time, there are still a lot of unsolved cases. And that's frustrating, and that's sad, and that's difficult, especially for the families who want closure and who deserve closure. If you've been following the Nancy Guthrie case, you can see how heartbroken her daughter actually is. You know what I mean? And so ultimately, people are going to argue about this. No, I think that they went off voluntarily. For instance, two of the last cases that I did a case on, Cindy James, and I did a case on, actually three, Maura Murray and Brianna Maitland. And the issue with them is they were the two girls that were from rural New Hampshire, rural New England, who had disappeared. And Maura Murray disappeared in 2003. She had had some issues. She had attended West Point. Knock it off. She had attended West Point and had misused a credit card of someone else's, is my understanding. And so she was struggling with that. She was struggling with her sister's addiction issue. And so she had communicated to her professors that she was not going to be in class because she had a death in the family, which there wasn't any death in the family, but it was likely related to her sister and wanting to keep things private. And so she packed up her dorm room and she left. She went to rural New Hampshire, in which I believe they said she stopped, withdrew some money. She had actually went to a liquor store, and there had been a period prior to that where she had wrecked, I think, her dad's car. And then after that, she was again found in rural New Hampshire and ended up in the middle of the, well, not, I don't know the middle of the night, but late in the night where it was dark and cold and icky, snow on the ground, things like that. And I think also had another fender bender. And there was a bus driver who offered to help her. She declined. She said that she had actually called for assistance on her cell phone, but the thing is, there was no cell service. So how would she have called for assistance on her cell phone? So people want to argue about theories. Well, she left. No, she didn't. She did this. She did that. She had some sort of break, or she did this. And so narratives form, and oftentimes narratives aren't the truth because we're speculating. We are making things speculative. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in too. I appreciate that as well. Just want to say thank you. This is a new format I'm trying out. You like it? Let me know. And so narratives form, right? And narratives are opinions. Everyone has one. Everyone has a theory, and that's okay. But ultimately, it doesn't really help the police officers do what they need to do. Welcome from India. Shout out. Thanks for tuning in. And then the truth gets buried because so many theories are happening that people are confusing things, right? They have their own theories. They're pushing their own theories. And so in the muck, the police have to try to maybe work through some of those. There's a lot of those. Sometimes there's the false ones and things like that, right? So it creates noise, not clarity. And if the police need anything but more noise, don't they? They need actual tips. But ultimately, people don't share tips because maybe they think their brother did it or their husband or any number of things. For instance, Ted Bundy's girlfriend actually called the hotline multiple times. But the issue was they were confused on the color. Hello. They were confused on the color of his VW Bug. I believe they thought it was brown when it was, I believe, yellow, right? Namaste. Welcome, Prana. Shout out to Prana, longtime viewer here, right? So we're doing true crime today, Prana. We're doing the most frustrating part of unsolved cases. Excuse me. We're talking about theories versus truth and why cases don't get solved. And it creates noise, not clarity, right? So let's talk about the emotional impact, because ultimately, even for true crime watchers, it's not about us, it's about the family, right? It's about how they're feeling, how they're dealing with things. And for families, the hardest part isn't the loss, it's the lack of answers. Because you need to find the answers, right? And we need to know what's going on, because otherwise you're going to live in limbo, and no family deserves to live in limbo, right? There's no closure, no timeline, no certainty. Our brains are wired to want resolution, and we all want resolution. We all want resolution. When we don't get it, we keep replaying it, trying to solve it ourselves. And true crime junkies are really good at that. They're really good at digging and digging and digging and digging and thinking and ruminating and going over. I still watch reruns of Unsolved Mysteries. You guys can laugh at me if you want. That's okay. But I loved Robert Stack. He was amazing. um, but let's talk about what bothers you more. Not knowing it all, one, or hearing theories that don't make sense, two. Anybody want to weigh in? Two or one? One or two, guys? I would say one. I would say one. One is definitely difficult, right? Not knowing. Yeah, I'll send it. I'll send you a message, Prana. One for sure, right? Because not knowing, you could drive yourself crazy, and I can't imagine being my family member being a victim to a crime and not knowing what happened to them. That would drive me insane. And I know a lot of you would likely feel the same way. You know, I mean, it's just sad. You know how one time a person is somewhere. And the other thing is I was talking about too is I was talking about Maura Murray and then Brianna Maitland. Brianna Maitland also disappeared in rural New England, and similar circumstances. She just disappeared. She actually was she had been estranged from her family, so she was living on her own, staying with friends and things like that. And some people said, oh, well, she just, she went off on her own. But actually, they didn't think that she went off on her own because she had been working really hard. She had been trying to do certain things for herself and was very independent. And so she wouldn't have just gone off, is what people said that actually knew her. But she had actually been assaulted by some of her friends. One of her friends, I guess, they had an altercation and she was beat up essentially. And they think that she potentially ran into someone that she might have known. And then they also said that there might have been a kind of drug undercurrent, given the fact that rural New Hampshire apparently has quite a bit of drug activity. And so the thing that's really interesting is that the Brianna Maitland case and the Maura Murray case both have similar characteristics. For instance, young girls, I believe Brianna Maitland disappeared a couple weeks after Maura. And so that kind of plays in. They both involved in abandoned cars. Maura abandoned her vehicle. And then Brianna, hers was backed into an old barn. And so it was like the police were like, is this a factor? Is this something that's going on? Or was she harmed by someone that she actually knew? And so that was another thing that kind of kept them kind of guessing what was actually going on there. And so from the outside, it looks like they're potentially connected, the Maura Murray and the Brianna Maitland case, which I covered both on my podcast, recovering_perfectionist_mama, if you want to check it out. I'm reinvigorating my Grace and Gavel. I had been focusing on my psychology channel, but going forward, I'm definitely bringing back the Grace and Gavel. So feel free to check that out if you like. And so I just want to say, in closing, sometimes the hardest cases aren't the most complex. They're the ones that never give you an ending. And right now, it looks like we don't have an ending. When I lived in Orlando, Jennifer Kesse was the ending that still has not happened. Apparently, they've talked about making progress on it, but unfortunately, that still has yet to come. I think they're doing DNA testing. I don't know how many of you remember. I'll send it to you here in a bit. They actually have testing that they're doing, and there's been some movement. Her family seems Drew, and I forget what her mother's name is, seems very hopeful that something's going to happen, and I hope it does for their sake. I mean, it's been 21 years now. They definitely are well past due to knowing what happened. And so that can be extremely difficult and extremely heart-wrenching. And so I definitely feel terrible for them. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of you. If you like this format, feel free to let me know, give me a thumbs up or send me a message on YouTube or whatever. But I appreciate you all, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And I think I'm going to go onto Instagram here shortly and do another live. So thanks so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in. Come back and see me. Bye-bye.